what happened in the Palisades just a year ago, which frankly, I don't think as a country we talk about enough. What happened was, nobody there needs me to remind them, but what happened there was so horrific and so reflective of an incompetent, ideologically corrupt state and local government. And the story, let me just read some of these numbers. This is from an ABC 11 piece from yesterday that basically added up some of the numbers or broke down some of the numbers. This fire, between the Eaton fire and the Palisades fire, 31 people died. 31 people died. The federal disaster aid that the Governor Newsom has requested is $33.9 billion. 16,000 structures were destroyed. That's about 9,000 homes in Altadena, Pacific Palisades, and Malibu, about 6,800 buildings, and those were mostly homes. Right now, 10 houses have been built so far, rebuilt so far. 10 houses. This is what ABC 11 says, quote, most are in the Altadena area, with one in Pasadena and two in Pacific Palisades. None are finished in Malibu. Billions of dollars in property damage, billions of dollars of property damage, thousands of homes destroyed, 31 people dead. And boy, did this story fall out of the news cycle quickly. And now Gavin Newsom is very clearly mounting a bid for president. Well, Spencer Pratt, who, if you're my age, is a very familiar name because of The Hills, which was the Laguna Beach spinoff, and Spencer Pratt on The Hills was pretty roundly accepted to be a massive villain. He, I think, even went on shows like House of Villains. He's still married to Heidi Montag. He was going very viral. I think he has a crystal business. He was going very viral for his very amusing love of hummingbirds. Back in like 2018, around that time period, is, not by any means a traditional Orthodox politician, but here's part of his announcement video in Los Angeles today.
On January 7th, 2025, Heidi and I lost our home. We lost every material possession we owned. My parents lost their home too, and with it, decades of memories made inside those walls. I grew up in the Palisades. I moved through these streets thinking my two boys would grow up here just like I did, with that same hometown feeling. But then right before my eyes, the future I envisioned for my family burned to the ground. I have to tell you, the most heartbreaking part of the past year wasn't being displaced or losing everything I own. It was the realization that all of this was preventable. The state and local leaders let us burn.
Let us burn. And he's basically right about that. Elsewhere in the speech, he said, quote, this is not just a campaign, this is a mission. And we are going to expose the system. He said, quote, business as usual is a death sentence for Los Angeles. I'm done waiting for someone to take real action. He's gotten supportive shout outs from Republicans like Steve Hilton, Rick Grinnell, Rick Scott in just the last day or so. Now, the California Republican Party said they haven't had any contact with him about this bid. He's posted pictures of himself filing the paperwork. Ostensibly, he's running as a Republican. He's been aligned with Republicans, interestingly enough, on a number of issues over recent years. But this is a very, very interesting political story because Spencer Pratt is the perfect Trump-era candidate, meaning and he has been. He goes fairly viral often with political commentary, and obviously both he and Trump are reality stars, reality television stars. Like that's the obvious point to make, but there's something deeper about the epistemology of social media, as Neil Postman might have said. Like, Neil Postman was upset about Ronald Reagan in the mid-'80s being an actor and being president because Ronald Reagan was great on TV. And Postman said that's different than coming across well in print, and that you lose something when you move from print, the slower, more thoughtful medium, to television, which is a much more aesthetic medium. And you can understand where that's coming from. I mean, you could write a full book about disagreements to that. On the other hand, the epistemology of the algorithm is a very different place to live in, and it has advantages and disadvantages. But one of those obvious advantages is that those of us who, I mean, it's everyone, the social media algorithms, which I personally detest, but what they do for all of us as they influence the big narratives, because journalists and politicians get their news from social media, and those narratives migrate into all of the other coverage and the big picture conversation, that comes from people at least appearing to be more authentic, right? More authentic than someone who does well in the epistemology of cable news. As Postman might have said, the epistemology of cable news is somebody who performs, whereas on social media algorithms, you don't want to look like you're performing at all. Have you noticed how many commercials recently are filmed like vertical video on iPhones? Because it makes it more compelling for the viewer who right now is looking for authenticity, and it's not always going to be authentically authentic. But that's where Spencer Pratt can genuinely be dangerous, right? He's different than a Rick Caruso, and Rick Caruso's probably running for governor. That's what it seems like. But Pratt is different than a Rick Caruso, who obviously lost to Karen Bass, had a lot of money, but lost to Karen Bass, because Pratt knows how to connect with people in an environment that is so low trust that people are drawn to what feels like reality, even when it's not reality, by the way. Because, again, he was on the Hills, which is scripted reality. That in and of itself is sort of the perfect illustration, encapsulation of where our politics are, and tells you how dangerous he could potentially be to Democrats in Los Angeles. Now, I don't know how dangerous Spencer Pratt could potentially be to Democrats in Los Angeles as a, like, on the substantive questions, but as a media figure, he knows what he's doing, and it's so fascinating. You know, I just was listening to Tucker Carlson's episode with Mike Cernovich that dropped this week. And Cernovich goes on this rather hilarious, like 25-minute monologue about his many ayahuasca journeys, as he puts it. And I was thinking to myself, listening to it, you have the formerly bow-tied Tucker Carlson, who was, of course, the first guest on this show, talking to Cernovich about ayahuasca and the spiritual journey of it. And it's so, I remember being I was at a Maha rally before the 2024 election, and I was watching, my evangelical friends with the barefoot hippies that were, like Ralph Nader types. And Spencer Pratt is totally in the middle of that Venn diagram. And that on the margins, it's not every American, it's not a majority of Americans, but it's enough people to make a political and cultural difference. And Pratt is a representative of that fascinating new community. And even just in those quotes that I read in the video you saw, he's saying this is not just a campaign, this is a mission, and we are going to expose the system. Business as usual is a death sentence for Los Angeles. I'm done waiting for someone to take real action. That's a message. If you get it to enough people, that resonates. If you get it to enough people with some sense of credibility, it resonates. It's 2026. It's a new year. A lot of people are focusing on practical changes, nothing too extreme. So one easy win for you might be replacing processed snacks with masa chips. It's clean eating and it doesn't feel restrictive. which is amazing. Masa keeps it real, no seed oils or additives. They taste so good. They leave you feeling light and energetic, never heavy or crashed out. That is something you actually do experience with Masa chips. It's really fantastic. My favorite is, I would say, lime. Probably I'm leaning more towards lime these days, but I have different purposes for the different Masa chip flavors. They're all good. And because you'll love Masa, you may also want to check out Vandy Crisps from the sister company. They're amazing 3-ingredient potato chips. I love the barbecue. So good. And I consider myself a chip connoisseur. So if you're ready to give Masa a try, go to masachips.com/afterparty and use code afterparty for 25% off your first order, or simply click the link in the video description or scan the QR code to claim this delicious offer. And if you don't feel like ordering online, good news. Masa is now available nationwide at your local Sprouts supermarket. So stop by and pick up a couple of bags before they're gone.